rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. The Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its meeting held on January 7, 2014. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona City Grove Times, the Star Ledger, the Herald News, the Township of Verona, and the Verona Education Association. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted in each of Verona's 6 schools, the board office, and town hall. This posting was also sent to the above newspapers, all SCA presidents, the SCA liaisons. The Verona Board of Education operates under a consent agenda format. Any board member has a right to have an item pulled to be voted upon or discussed separately. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public present. Mr. Spartel?
Here.
Mr. Day?
Here.
Mr. Bellino?
Here.
Mr. Yunus?
Here.
Mr. Quachochi?
Here. Okay, welcome to our second meeting of November. We have a fairly abrupt set of agenda tonight. First, any public comment or question on the agenda item? No? All right, we'll go to our presentation. The folks from Honeywell are here to do an overview of the ESIP project, and that's Mr. Kasha? Right? Exactly.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I didn't get the
Yep,
gentleman's-
that's
the
Paul
agendas.
Peters.
Paul Peters?
Paul
Okay,
Peters is our lead engineer for the project.
great.
So Paul actually knows your buildings intimately. So, first of all, thank you so much for seeing us this evening. We truly, truly appreciate it. That's number one. Number two is thank you for selecting us as your ESCO partner. And we're really excited about implementing a program that we think is very, very beneficial to the school district. And what we've done so far, or to date, is that we've developed an energy savings plan. I'm going to touch on that. But last week, we met with the Buildings Committee.
Buildings and Grounds Committee, yeah.
Buildings and Grounds Committee, gave them an overview of where the project is. And what you have before you is the overview. Just wanted to go through it. It'll help everyone get grounded and reacquainted with the Energy Savings Improvement Program, which is sponsored literally by the state of New Jersey. It's legislation that only passed in late 2009, 2010. You're not first, so we're not learning on you. There's no learning curve here.
Can you just move the mic down, because we record for the television?
It's a short joke. That's making it low. So what you see before you is the Energy Savings Improvement Plan goals as outlined by the state of New Jersey. And in essence, it's called performance contracting. It's a program where you can upgrade your infrastructure and do that with money that you're currently spending. You're spending it in your utility bills right now. What you're going to do is you're going to basically take, instead of spending it with the utility, you're going to funnel it right back into your buildings. And the key goals to this program is that there are no capital dollars needed to implement these projects. The savings are guaranteed by Honeywell, and public entities can do this for a 15 to 20-year period. Your specific project is designed for a 15-year period. You go to a 20-year period if you have different applications. It does not really apply in your district. But in essence, this graph on page 3 identifies that there's no capital outlay, and it's funded with energy and operational savings. And Honeywell will guarantee the savings. And so it's just a method, a financing method, to help you maintain or improve your infrastructure for things that maybe have fallen by the wayside due to budget cuts and maintenance cuts over the years. There's a big difference between this and your referendum money, in that the money is going to be spent anyway. Now you just don't affect your taxpayer, and you get to funnel the money right back into the building itself with money that you're already spending.
Mr. Kasha, just a quick question. So on the Honeywell guaranteeing the savings, this kind of gets bantered around a bit every now and then.
Sure.
What the program guarantees is the savings in the units of energy, right?
That's correct.
The number of units of energy.
That's
not
correct.
Not the utility cost that we pay the gas company, the oil companies. It's not that cost. The number of so if I replace the furnace that would burn X units of energy in a given year, the new furnace would be efficient to the point of I should burn X minus something. That's the guarantee.
That's
right?
100% correct. So if you're using 100 kilowatt hours and we guarantee that you're going to now use 50 kilowatt hours. That's the savings that we're identifying based on a specific rate, depending on what you're paying with regards to the utility.
Right.
Now, the BPU gives us a set of protocols, a set of guidelines that we have to follow when calculating energy savings. And as I was just telling Rui, the BPU just approved your energy plan yesterday.
Right,
So,
he sent them,
it's fully approved, and what that means is that the plan itself, including the calculations of savings, was not only approved by, I think it was LJM Engineering Firm, which was your third-party verification company. Then the BPU looked at it, and they verified it as well. And so there's 3 sets of eyes
To verify the
to verify
savings.
the
Yep,
savings. But you're correct. There's certain things. So, for example, if you have an unusually mild winter, we can't take credit for savings because you didn't burn your boilers as much.
Right.
And
right.
conversely, the opposite as well. If you have a polar vortex, you've got to make adjustments. And Paul can elaborate a little bit more on the adjustments that are made if you'd like further clarification. Did I answer your question, though?
Yep,
No?
yep, absolutely, yep.
To continue, on page 4, what we did is focus on the goals, as we've heard from your district, primarily through Paul, and that was really to improve the energy efficiency itself. Accomplish certain repairs outside of your referendum. So now you're going to get a comprehensive solution for your building. We did talk to EI Associates. We shared, we did share energy calculations with them. We did share a couple of meetings with them to make sure that there was no duplication of effort. And so some of the things that you may not be doing, well, for example, we left out all the mechanical programs here in the high school because it's being covered under your referendum money. But what we're doing is we're attacking the other schools. And we're also going to take savings out of this school, for example, LED lighting throughout the building itself. LED has come to the point where they burn for 100,000 hours, and the energy wattage usage is going from somewhere between 28 and 32 watts per bulb down to 15. So it's a significant funding mechanism for the rest of the project. And one of the things that we definitely did include here in terms of repairing the high school ceiling in one specific area, Paul, which? Yeah, multiple classrooms.
So is that because, so, I'm sorry, so the high school ceiling is, in and of itself, doesn't consume any power or cost?
None at all.
Is it that with the savings across the other ones, you're able to fit that sort of thing in? Is that
What the law
and
allows,
as a byproduct of dealing with the lights and all, you're disrupting?
that's correct.
So it's,
What the law allows is for you to do 15% of the total project cost in non-energy energy savings projects, so long as there's enough savings generated at other areas of the project that pays for it,
to pay for that.
right?
And do those other projects have to be somehow related to the power savings projects, or it could be anything?
No, it's pretty much what we've identified, anything that's associated with either gas or electrical savings in the buildings,
So it
or
has to be
water.
associated
or
to the
water.
greater project? the
Correct.
greater ESIP, yeah, okay.
Correct. The energy savings plan that we've produced, and I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at it, it's like a
Yeah.
700-page document. 684. It consists of quite a few different, what we call ECMs, or energy conservation measures.
Yep.
Not all of them fit under the legislation. But in our conversations with Paul McDivitt in identifying the priorities of the district, we've cut through and weeded out and took certain projects out. But because they're in the energy savings plan, if at a future date maybe the savings becomes more available or financing becomes available, you're actually allowed to implement them down the road.
Okay, got
Okay.
it.
From a technical standpoint, I don't want to go over it a lot. If anybody has any questions on page 5 with regards to, these are just the comprehensiveness of some of the programs that we're using. One of the keys was building automation. You already have what they call a train automation system. So what we're doing is we're going to expand on that train automation system, and Paul's going to have the ability to control his buildings from one location or from home or so on. So he's going to be able to react quicker and making sure he gets things done. We're looking at window unit replacement and boiler replacement over at Lanning Avenue, as well as managing the plug loads of certain things like these computers. Even though they're off, they're still burning energy, and so there's a way to save some energy on that as well.
So the window unit, you guys are actually going to be replacing the window.
I'm going to let Paul expand on that a little bit.
You have the, on the, just say on the right.
Set up. Record you.
So on the, at Landing Avenue, on the, basically the right side of the building, you have a new wing. Okay, there's 4 classrooms, and actually I could just give you the classroom numbers. I think it's 226, 224, 225. Oh, I'm sorry, it's 126, 128, 129. Those classrooms right now have window AC units, and one of the requests was made is to take those units out and actually cool those rooms by another means. Right now, we're in the process of investigating another method to do that. We initially were going to go with a variable refrigerant volume system, but now we kind of went back, and now we're going to look at basically changing. There's a heating and ventilation unit that sits on the roof that serves those spaces. We crunched our numbers again, and we think it's more economical just to replace that unit and just put a rooftop unit that will give us heating and cooling at the same time. So that's the space we're going to focus on at that building. So we'll give that, basically, once we're done, that whole wing will be cooled. It's a matter of just changing out the unit, adding cooling to the new unit, and then changing some ductwork in the hallway.
Just so variable refrigerant volume is just a method of utilizing, if you're not familiar with, you get one condensing unit which can serve multiple areas, and the unit itself is smart enough to figure out where the load is and and that becomes the efficiency of the overall thing.
Okay.
Thanks.
From a financial standpoint, right now, on page 6, what we're looking at is approximately a $3.1 million project. And I say approximate because I think Steve and Paul let me know that he shared with the board that what we're shooting for is to come back to you on December 9th with a firm, fixed agreement that Honeywell guarantees will not go over that. And if the bids come in higher, Honeywell's responsible for it. If the bids come in lower, the school district retains those savings or uses the additional money in the project or to do more things because the savings are already identified with the total amount. And so we're pretty close. We're going to be pretty close to this $3.178 million that we've identified. The savings, we're still crunching them as well a little bit more. Savings are actually easier to identify than the costs of the project because you've got some various factors in terms of when we put it out to public bid where the costs are going to go. But the savings are calculations that are proven methods identified not only by good engineering practices but also verified by third parties. It all depends on what the final solution is. For example, if we go VRV versus rooftop package unit, the savings will change slightly. But either way, under this legislation, we're responsible for making sure that there's a positive cash flow each and every year of the agreement. We were pretty conservative in identifying that there's a 3% interest rate here. We believe an interest rate for a 15-year deal is probably going to come in more around the 2.4 to 2.5 range. We were just able to secure a 19-year project with Parsippany that came in at a 2.6 interest rate. Obviously, the shorter term, banks can be a little bit more aggressive, and so we're anticipating that your interest rate, and that's free cash flow to the district.
So the bond, do we do a normal issue of a bond like we did for the referendum, or is this a special program issue of a bond? There's a bond, in this case, the bond is.
You can do either, you can either issue a bond or you can do a capital lease.
Generally it's on a lease.
Not a bond?
The project is on a lease purchase basis.
That's
generally.
correct.
More times than not, it's a lease
Yeah.
purchase.
For that long, for 15 years?
There's two methods that the law allows. One is called an energy recovery bond, which is different than a bond referendum. The energy recovery bond, you still have to go through the bonding process, and you have to get a bond council, go through the local finance board, and so on. And they allow you to do that without a requirement for voter
But
approval.
it would have the issuance of the bond costs in that case. Right? That's
Exactly.
what it had,
And so our recommendation for a project of this size, and because the current interest rates are very, very aggressive anyway, they're real close to bond rates. The recommendation would be to go for your municipal lease purchase. And whether you use a financial advisor or not, Honeywell can help you put out you're going to put out a bid. As a matter of fact, that's one of the, I don't know if Paul provided the sample resolution, but one of the things that you'll be looking at on December 9th would be the authorization to go out to bid for municipal lease purchase. And then you take in the best rate based on the financed amount, and you pick the bank from there. But it pays for interest, everything is covered under the energy savings. Okay. In essence, we've identified, on page 7, we've identified approximately $460,000 worth of rebates associated with this project. That'll go up and down as we do our building models, but we've been pretty accurate in a lot of our interest. We were able to just provide a $600,000 check to Bridgewater Schools as part of their rebates associated with it. And again, the project gets built, and there's an installation period. All that time, the school district starts to get the savings of the projects that get completed early. No payments are required with any of the project until the project's complete, and you're achieving full savings. We'll keep track of them. We'll keep track of savings after an energy conservation measure is completed. But for the most part, from a cash flow standpoint, you get a little freedom during the installation period. And
Are you familiar with Sustainable New Jersey,
yes,
and specifically Sustainable New Jersey for schools? It's new. I don't know if you've had a chance to.
Sustainable New Jersey for Schools is, and Paul may be more familiar with it than I am, but are you guys members of Sustainable New Jersey?
Not
Did you
yet.
join?
Rui and I have been speaking about that when we were at the convention down in Atlantic City as a possibility, because one is we're already taking a lot of steps instructionally in the classroom as well as our infrastructure with the referendum and this new ESIP, but also it opens up a variety of funding sources that would only help embellish that number.
Yeah, and unfortunately, under the ESIP legislation, the only thing you can take advantage of are the rebates and and the municipal lease financing. Now, however, if you look at page 8, we've already identified greenhouse gas emissions and the reduction thereof with the project as it stands right now. So that gets you along the way with meeting, to become maybe a green ribbon building.
Exactly.
And that's where you want to head
And
towards.
then, I can see that they wouldn't want to receive double credit, because a lot of the same ESIP rebates are,
Correct. Everybody wants to take credit for it. And,
Yeah, got it.
It was ours. No, it was ours.
Yeah.
So,
All right, thank you.
but, yeah. But we can outline for you any specifics associated with that.
And that was my second thought on it, was if you've already got the expertise and we have a plan, just rather than having to do it after the fact, if we send
Sure.
it your way, that'd be fantastic.
I have an individual that used to work for the Federal Department of Energy, and he's very familiar with they have a new resiliency bank that eventually is going to offer money to school districts to combine heat and power and so on. They're dealing with county government first, city government first, colleges, and then they're going to be going to education and school districts. It's called the New Jersey Resiliency Bank Program. It's another way to give out money.
Great, thank you.
So as you can see on page 8, we're looking at significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and these are all calculated as part of the overall savings associated with the project. And if we move to page 9, like we mentioned, the BPU approved your energy plan just yesterday, and so that's great. So that's the next step for us to provide a not-to-exceed agreement for the school district, and what we're shooting for is your December 9th board meeting. So what we're doing is we've got to assess our costs. We're working diligently right now to make sure that we can identify where these bids are going to come in. And so what we want to do is we want to make you feel comfortable. We want to take the risk associated with the project, and we've got broad shoulders. We follow the same rules that Cheryl would follow when she was doing a public bid. That means that we get to do it 3 times if they're over budget. But after that, if they're still over budget, Honeywell will eat the difference associated with the project. And then once we enter into any agreement, there will be no change orders associated with this project. It becomes Honeywell's responsibility in delivering the scope of work that we've identified for you.
But Honeywell can issue a change order because it's practical or needs.
Oh, we would, yeah,
You-
that's
you could do that,
correct.
right, okay,
It- The biggest difference between this project and a low bid construction project, it's really called performance contracting. It's performance-based. It has to perform on the long end. We're not looking for the cheapest boiler, or matter of fact, we're probably going for the most expensive boiler, but we're going for the most efficient with ease of operation and so on. In conjunction, we've worked with Paul quite a bit. Paul's given us some good ideas of preferences of what he would like for equipment, preferences in terms of boilers and so on. And the good news about this is that we don't have to worry about we still have to take the lowest responsible bidder, but the way we write our specifications, we raise the bar.
Just two quick questions here, Mr. Kasha. The first one is there a limit on how often we can do such a project? Other than the practical nature of having you guys come in and go through the exercise. And I know initially there was a review district-wide to see what would qualify for the program, and this is everything that would have qualified?
Yeah, so initially you did what they call a local government energy audit.
Right.
And as long as you've done the energy audit in all of your buildings, there really is no limit to this. You've already done the energy audit, and so you satisfied that requirement of the law. That's another reason why we try to make the energy plan as comprehensive as possible. If you'll notice, we even put roof replacements in the energy plan. And we've actually done a roof replacement at Kearney. So it happened to fit because the energy savings were sufficient enough to pay for it. And so you could revisit it down the road as either technologies change. So if I can get a roof that pays for itself in 5 years, you can do it again.
Right.
As long as believe it or not, as long as you've done that energy audit and it's included in the energy savings plan, you don't even have to, you don't have to go out to RFP again, you don't have to do anything.
And that energy audit has some longevity to it, like after a certain amount of years it expires, I would imagine, right?
They
Is it a
actually,
5-year
they
plan?
actually tried to put a limit on it in the beginning, but what had happened is that the law got out in front of the school districts. And so, I'm sorry, the school districts got out in front of the law. So they found a lot of school districts did their energy audits really, really early. And by the time they went out for ESIP projects, the couple of years had gone by. So they revised it so that they said, listen, as long as the school district can reasonably say that there have not been any major changes in the building, all you have to do is provide updated utility data. And so once you provide the updated utility data, the original local government energy audit was acceptable.
So and the last question is, the savings in here is a combination of electricity costs and gas for us. It's gas, right? So assuming that we approve this at the next meeting, which is the current plan, when would all this work? It's a two-part question, I guess, part for you, part for Ms. Nardino. So the work will get done presumably this school year. Is that about right?
We're anticipating probably about a 10-month installation schedule.
Okay, so
for you.
somewhere in 2015.
Correct.
Right.
That
And
would
then
be the
after-
ideal. It all depends on when the financing hits.
Right. And then we've got a 15-year sort of draw on the lease purchase costs, right? What, our gas and electrical, we go to some consortium for.
ACES? ACES? No?
It's a different one. It's a different one, but it's the same sort of, when do those expire?
They expire at different times.
Yeah, but usually they're 3-year
We're doing-
agreements, right?
Not always,
No.
because our gas, sometimes we go out to bid and we lock in for 6 months,
Oh, good.
depending on, what they think. Some of them are 12 months.
Oh, I have
But
something.
usually not out 3 years, The market's kind of volatile to.
Yeah, one thing that we could be happy to bring to the table, actually, we're doing in Parsippany, not us, Honeywell doesn't do this, but we brought a third party to the table, and they act like, you know how if you have your investments in an IRA, you usually pay a guy to watch your account?
Right.
Well, I
That's
learned
what-
that a long time ago. I can't watch my stuff every day. Well, they have companies now that literally do that on a daily basis with utility. And so what they do is they hedge the market, and they'll buy 50% of your current consumption at a fixed rate. Because if you locked in, Cheryl's right, if you locked in 3 years ago for gas now, you're probably overpaying for gas.
Right.
Okay.
So, but, right, so I think we'd like, I personally would think we should take a look at that because.
Sure, be happy to bring it up.
Because, you're, all of this is predicated on a given price for the electricity and the, right, you have to make an assumption on what the price of gas, like, you don't have, in the savings, you don't have a forward forecast of what gas is going to cost in 8 years' time or anything like that.
Actually, in the utility, the BPU allows us to prorate the pro forma by 2.4%. So the utility rate is based on an increase of 2.4% steady.
Right, it never, but in the pro forma, it never goes down in
The
the forecast.
consumption, that's 2.4% escalation
In-
of the consumption.
No, it's of
No,
the cost, right,
the
Paul?
cost.
Of the cost. That's what the,
Yeah,
that's
but
what the
that-
BP, that's the way the BPU told us to do it, so.
Right, no,
So-
it's a standard, right.
right.
So, but the point is that I'm trying to make is that because of the nature of the program, it doesn't have a forecast where it could actually go down.
No,
Right,
it doesn't,
because-
but it is based on a baseline.
Right, right.
So the baseline being what you're spending right now. So everything gets compared to the current
So
costs.
I think we ought to sort of entertain the idea of getting somebody to take a look at the program and what our options might be as these contracts expire or get renewed, because
Sure.
at some point you may, just to mitigate risk, you probably want to
Sure.
consider locking in
I'd
a
be happy to
rate.
bring someone in. I know a couple of companies that do that.
You
So,
know, like if something,
yeah, at one
we're
point-
just a missile away in the Mideast of the whole thing could go through the roof. right?
yeah, I don't see anybody predict it. I mean, other than the occasional blip, I don't see any predictions where utility rates are going to drop precipitously.
Except in the last 5 months, right?
But
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
but
If prices go up, it makes this project more attractive.
More attractive.
Sure.
You guys guarantee the consumption savings, right? And I looked at it's interesting, LED lighting, it's 50% of the
significant.
consumption, right?
We're
So-
using that to pay for the boiler.
Yeah.
Right, but we're taking the risk on the commodity price, because if the commodity price goes down, then it makes these projects that much less attractive.
That's true, but at one point in time, see, I like savings to be savings. Here, I just saved you this money, put it in your pocket. That's a savings. But at one point in time, it is going to become a cost avoidance as opposed to a savings. In other words, you're starting out, your current utility bill is going like this, right? When you
Yeah.
do the work, it's going to go like this. And it's still going to start to escalate up a little bit unless they drop precipitously, but then you're still saving more money. But
No, you're saving, the program will save us money over the status quo. There's zero question
No
about
question.
that. I think we should just do some analysis on, my personal view is lock in some percentage of our current costs for some duration of time, because if that, even if the costs go up, if they go up a lot, the program makes sense, but you're still spending more than you're spending today.
Yeah, but we should do that anyway, whether we do this
Correct.
project or not. We should always try to manage
Correct.
or hedge or manage. I mean, there's an argument for not doing that, right? Because if you
called
if you
gambling.
lock in, huh?
It's called gambling.
Exactly.
Right.
So but we should do that. That's independent of this project.
Exactly, but the project by in and of itself is great. It makes all the sense in the world. But when you look at how much we spend
Yeah.
on utility,
Yeah.
and it's all going to consortium, that's got duration, we should be thoughtful about what that horizon looks like.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say, and this is really just purely based on experience, in the county sector and the municipal sector, what happens is you identify all these savings, and you say, okay, I'm going to save you $300,000 a year, and it's usually good for 1 year, and then some politician says, you know what, you're saving me $300,000. Let's use it over here, and all of a sudden it's
Not
gone.
some politician, it's every politician.
Well, yeah, and so the biggest mistake you could ever make would be to reduce your budget.
Right. no.
Don't reduce your budget. Always anticipate that it's going to escalate, and at the end of the year, if you get a surplus, great. But you can't go with the idea of, oh, I'm going to save $300,000, and that's okay for 1 year because it comes right off the bottom line. But eventually, if you try to funnel that money somewhere else,
Yep.
you're not going to be paying for the project.
All right, so our next move is resolution.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. though.
Sure.
Can you go back to page 6, Joe?
Sure.
Because you had mentioned in the beginning that there's no capital outlay. So it may be, so I don't quite follow that, because
Sure.
there is capital investment involved in order to get those savings.
Sure, let me clarify. So there's no capital coming out of your budget. associated with this. The municipal, so if we identify a $3 million project, Bank of America,
Yeah, we have to borrow the money in order to invest the capital.
correct, and
Right.
so it's probably a little bit misnomer, there's no capital outlay. Somebody's got to pay. So it's just that they're not going to, it's not going to touch your budget at that point in time.
So of the $3.1 million, right, there's $2.4 million worth of stuff, and then $700,000 worth of Honeywell services to construction management, that adds up to the 3.1 million.
I don't know exactly what the breakdown is, but there's the RFP response that we have when we were selected originally outlines all of those specific
Yeah, I'm just going.
fees. Yeah, there you go.
From this
Okay, yeah,
spreadsheet here.
I hadn't looked at it. That's correct.
And then, in order to, so we have to borrow $3.1 million, right? So invest 2.4 of it, give you guys 700,000 for it, all right? And then what you guarantee is just the reduced consumption, right? So and then we just hope that the utility costs basically what it does now, so that we can capture those dollars saved. You don't guarantee dollar savings,
Well,
right?
so we're going to guarantee, it'll equate out to dollars based on current rates. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly.
so
Right, I
if your annual payment, so to speak, is $50,000 and you only save $40,000, we write you a check for $10,000. That's the guarantee.
Okay, say that again?
If your payment is $100,000 and you only save 90, okay, because we're going to provide you some reports that show you the savings, and we're going to come in and look at how you're using the buildings and so on. And we only save you $90,000. We write you a check for $10,000 to keep you whole. So.
Well, what rate do you use?
So it's going to be based on the adjusted rates as you're paying now. So it's still based on consumption, right? So Frank Capitamino would come in and identify, right? Measurement and
Yeah,
verification
you're going to
services.
measure the consumption. But if our gas costs go down, let's just take the extreme, like it goes down to $1 per million standard cubic feet,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that it's almost, it doesn't cost us hardly anything for gas. We're never going to realize these savings.
Because you're paying less, but you're also using less. You're correct. If you do the math, it comes
Right.
out less.
So you won't guarantee
Yeah,
that.
well, I'm going to have to ask, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one, because I got to see how my measurement and verification people do that. I'm not,
'Cause that's-
I haven't seen that, honestly, in 25 years I've been doing this, I haven't seen that.
Just over the last
that-
couple of years, we've seen our gas costs go down,
Uh-huh.
right? And our electricity costs go down.
Right.
So if we had put capital in 3 years ago, hoping to get those savings, we'd
Yeah.
be saying, oh, we really didn't have to do that.
You know, it's funny, about 10 years ago, they had a program called the Standard Offer, which was, it was offered by PSE&G for a lighting project. And the Standard Offer said, if you want to get this money on a rebate, you got to leave your lights on. Leave your lights on, and they put meters on them, and if you shut your lights off, you didn't get your rebate. It still saves you money if you shut the lights off. So if the price goes down, I'm a happy guy anyway, because the district is still saving the money, so.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I got no problem. I agree with you. But it didn't justify the capital, because we're still paying the interest on we're still paying the leasing company.
Sure.
Whether gas rates go to $13 or whether they go down to 13 cents, right? We're still paying the gas company.
Correct.
I mean, the leasing company. So the only way we get to pay that is if we save on energy. So if you could just clarify that, because then you also made a comment about a positive cash flow guarantee. So because when we entered into this, I really understood that you guys were only guaranteeing the consumption, the reduction, which is fine. That's what if I were you, that's all I'd guarantee as
Sure.
an engineering company.
Sure.
But how do you guarantee positive cash flow?
So the law won't allow us to implement an agreement that shows a cash flow with any negative year. That's to start. That's the BPU. They're basically saying you got to structure your financing so that your savings each and every year.
Yeah, okay. So I see that here. That's
Okay.
this year, right?
Correct.
You're showing positive.
Correct. And it's all how you structure your financing. So, and it's a great point. You know, we are gonna guarantee your consumption. And I appreciate the fact that you're anticipating that if your costs go down, the project's not as valuable.
Exactly.
It all depends on what you're doing the project for. I mean, if you're looking to upgrade your infrastructure and get your buildings into the condition where, not in perpetuity, but at least for the 15, 20 years, it's consuming less energy. There's always going to be certain adjustments and heating adjustments and cost adjustments and
Yeah,
so on.
yeah, but
But-
there's no free lunch, so.
No,
so
no,
my
there
oth-
never
my other-
is.
my
There
other
never
question-
is.
My other question, Joe, is, if you could, because I couldn't find it in your documentation, a more detailed list, a breakdown of the projects that show, because I could see all the little LED projects that are they're cutting the energy costs or the energy consumption in half, right? So then if the cost stays the same, the savings would be, but I couldn't see a list of all the projects that were, those high return on investment projects are subsidizing the low return on investment.
You
Because I
mean the
would
actual
like to
energy
see the break-
calculations themselves?
No, just the breakdown in the terms of dollars, right? So because in one
There's
of
a
your
Form
slides-
2, there's a Form 2 in that energy savings plan. It has
Form
a
2?
Form 2, it would be right next to the, may I?
Yeah, I think so, yep.
Window AC units, window AC units have a 266-year payback if they would stand on their own.
Right.
So it's one of those things, you know, you decide if you want to do some of those things that you probably wouldn't, you'd have to go find capital for to do, or you pay for it out of
Yeah,
savings that
exactly.
you're getting elsewhere. Is that the form you're looking for?
'Cause-
That's what you mean?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. So I think this is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Because my take on this is really what this is, because we could do this on our own, right? We could hire an engineering company like Honeywell to give us the expertise and say, here, invest in this, then borrow your money, and we'd have, maybe, you'd have to go for a referendum. We could do this.
Sure you can.
Right, on our own. This is just a way to capture, to raise capital without having to go through the referendum process and risk having the voters not believe that there's a good return on investment.
Yeah, and I would add one thing, I would say, and I would never, ever say risk-free. Limit the risk. You limit the risks associated with it. You limit the amount of time, because the way this works is that once you authorize Honeywell to be your construction manager, general contractor, and so on, we're responsible for the bidding, we're responsible for following the law, and if there's an energy savings guarantee, we're responsible for that, and we're also responsible that there's no change orders associated with the project,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is usually pretty big.
I think you're compensated for because we're just then distributing the risk from us to you,
Correct.
right? And you're being compensated, because
Of course.
your fees on a percentage of the total project are much higher than the engineering companies that we're dealing with on our referendum project. So, it's, you know, that's what we're signed up to do.
Sure.
So, but if you could just get some clarification on the guarantee, when you say a savings guarantee.
Sure.
My understanding is you're just gonna save us energy, but you're not gonna save us money unless there's money in the energy, which of course there is, but in terms of how much, that's our risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So it's going to be based on I will get you further clarification. I'm looking to Paul for something here. So it's specifically based on comparison to the base year. So when Frank looks at it, he's going to compare consumption. I'm speculating, guys, just so bear with me. He's going to look, so if you used 100 kilowatt hours at 10 cents, and now you're using 50 kilowatt hours, he's going to keep it at 10 cents.
Yeah,
And then show you the adjustment.
Exactly.
So,
But if it goes to 2 cents, then all of a sudden it makes the projects less attractive. But if it goes to 20 cents,
Sure.
then we're hitting home runs. So when you say positive cash flow guarantee, so you said a couple of things, Joe, that if you could
I'll
just give
check
me
it.
clarification. No capital, because I don't think that's true. But then the positive cash flow guarantee, what does that mean?
well, I don't know if we're talking semantics on the no capital or not, and I guess what I really mean,
We are, because there's capital.
there's capital coming from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I say no capital, meaning your taxpayers are not responsible for any additional capital because you're spending that money already.
That's
that kind of-
semantic. Of
Yeah,
course-
it is
of course-
semantics, I
Of
realize
course
that.
they are. We're $3.5 million of their money. Have to,
Yeah, but the thing is that you're looking at out-of-pocket costs here. And your out-of-pocket costs are going to be the same, because what you're saving in energy,
Budget neutral,
consumption,
you're right.
of course,
you're right.
that's the definition
it's
of
no-
a positive return on
It's no additional
investment.
cost to the taxpayer.
That's correct.
It's the same cost.
Provided this energy stays at a reasonable rate. If the energy costs go down, then it is
Yeah,
costing
but there's a
you.
number of
There is
different ways to
capital.
calculate savings. You can calculate savings on consumption, you can calculate savings on price, and I would expect that in your calculations that you're gonna do both. You're gonna compensate us for the differential in consumption if it's negative, but you're not gonna compensate us for the difference in price.
Correct.
That's our risk, the
That's-
difference on price.
That's
On
correct.
Consumption, you're gonna guarantee the consumption.
That's correct.
The savings on consumption.
That's-
And hopefully, in a real world, or in a perfect world, that the savings in your energy consumption will equal our payment for the capital project.
You hit it right on the head. You're budget neutral. You're budget neutral. You're in a situation where, you know,
Once the price goes up, it's not budget neutral anymore.
correct.
Price goes down.
Right, that,
we
if price
not
goes
only
up, it
buy-
becomes a cost avoidance,
go-
right? Price goes down,
then
it's
you
not as
buy the
valuable of a
capital, and
product.
we go buy some more textbooks with it, too.
Yeah.
So.
oh man, I'd love to see my gas rates reduced more. All right, so then Steve, your request is, and I just want to make sure I have it right, your request is to verify how the payout or payback of a positive cash flow guarantee is done.
Well, exactly, when you say positive cash flow guarantee, if you could define what that means, because that is, what I think it is different than what I could easily interpret it to be, that you're gonna guarantee our cash flow. I don't think you are, Joe. I think the risk is on us.
Yeah, you're probably right. I wouldn't argue with you. But it's really not out of the ordinary, though, as either, so,
Yeah, okay.
okay? I'll get you that. Yeah, you guys are in
Because then
tomorrow,
the other
right?
thing I wanted was a list of when you say the valuable projects are subsidized, or paying for, so the really good projects are paying for the bad projects, right? The low return. And will this give me the breakdown of what those are? I think they will, right?
It will.
Yeah,
That
okay.
has it. That has breakdown. There's a table. Oh, yeah, there's a pivot table. Why don't you show him where the pivot table is? Right in the back of that same section. There's a building-by-building breakdown of each ECM.
Yes, I have this one. I just
No,
must have
not
missed
that.
this, because I was working off the disc.
So, and then
It's
it's an eye chart, it's also in the CD.
You should have it
Yeah,
on
yeah, I saw that.
electronic.
That's what I printed it out here. I think this is the one I want, so I'll digest this.
Okay.
So that's a listing
Thanks,
of
Paul.
a listing of all the projects being done or all the upgrades?
Correct. There's a breakdown by project and its return, savings per project, and payback period in simple payback. And there's another chart in there that shows a building-by-building energy conservation measure.
In Excel?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you can have that. Yeah, that's this here.
So I'll get you that information. If not by tomorrow, you'll have it by Monday.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get one of my M&V guys to spell it out.
Great.
Otherwise, we're still shooting for the 9th.
Yep.
And,
We're on the plan for the
we've got some due diligence to do still internally. I'll know by next week if we're gonna make the 9th.
Okay, that's
Because I
great.
don't wanna
We,
come,
the
I don't wanna
only
come
thing
back to you with something that's not fully vetted.
Yep, okay. All right, great.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Have a
holiday.
wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone.
You too.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
This is the old one? This is the one that,
All right, we could go to superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. Just an update on the technology referendum, making really good progress, still ahead of schedule. Happy to share at this point that the rough-in cabling, all the Cat6 cabling, is now completely installed in 5 of the 6 district schools. We have also A+ technology and security company, has also configured all of the network switches off-site. They already have began installing a lot of the network switches in district and installing them very successfully. In regard to our manager of information technology position, we had a very good turnout. We had approximately 30 applicants for the position, and that's been very interesting. We've begun the interviewing process, and we're screening approximately 15 of those 30 applicants. We'll have a committee selection process that will take place within the next week and a half, and then we're aiming for a December 9th board appointment. I just want to congratulate our VHS girls varsity soccer team on a fantastic season. As many of you already know, on November 14th, on Friday evening game against Glen Ridge, our ladies did lose that event, but they performed extremely well against a very good Glen Ridge team. So I just wanted to publicly congratulate them on a season well played. And congratulations as well to our VHS football team. They beat Becton 22-0 on Saturday, and they will be in the state championship at MetLife Stadium on Friday, December 5th at 5 p.m. So congratulations to them and best of luck at the next game. And that's all for the superintendent's report.
You want to talk about the contingencies for the game Thanksgiving?
So at this point, as many people know, we have some impending weather that's coming through for our Thanksgiving Day game against Caldwell. It's currently scheduled for our home field here at Verona High School on Thursday morning. And pending the weather, we're going to be determining on how much snow it is. We have had communications with the township, and we have tentative plans to move it to Centennial Field, pending how much snow we actually do get. If it is too much snow on Thursday, the game could move to Friday. And then if it goes beyond Friday, there will be no game as our varsity program is getting ready, of course, for our state championship game the Friday after. So it will either be Thursday morning, either at our home field and or Centennial. If we can't pull that off, we will try for Friday at some point, and if not, then we will avoid the game altogether and make sure that our team is healthy for next Friday.
Any questions? Okay, we have Finance and the Ad hoc Referendum Committee reports tonight. You had Finance meet tonight?
Okay, yeah, the Finance Committee did meet tonight, and we spent the entire meeting discussing some unbudgeted costs that are potential problems for us. They all relate at this point in time to some special education situations where we have some students that are out of district or potentially will go out of district that were not budgeted, that we were not aware of when we put our budget together. And one of the things that we did discuss beyond the budget impact of these costs is that what can we do internally or within the district to try and meet some of the needs of these students here in Verona without having to send them to an out-of-district placement. And Mr. Denisio was very, very vocal in that, and in that his desire is to look to see how we can keep these students in district. When we send these students to out-of-district placements to private schools for special education, special needs students, they're quite expensive. They can run anywhere from $25,000 to $100,000, and the average is probably somewhere in between those two numbers. So anytime we can keep a student in district, we think it's a win-win situation. Number one, it's a win situation economically for us, and number two, we think that we can keep keeping these students in the district. We can take better care of them, and perhaps they can function in a more appropriate, or not appropriate, but more common type of setting. Do you want to kind of explain what you're talking about? Because I think it's important that we do as much as we can in order to help the students, not only academically, but obviously even for the district financially.
Sure. So two key things that we're looking at doing that we've moved on very recently is the first is the INRS process, and what that stands for is Intervention and Referral Services. And INRS is a best practice methodology in order to make sure that each school-based team is receiving through protocol. They have a committee that is reviewing any information that comes from teachers and parents regarding concerns regarding individual students. And those issues are discussed as far as learning issues confidentially, and then best practice strategies with data-driven methods are implemented in the classroom, and data is collected to see if there are any tangible effects and improvements for that student's learning needs. So the INRS process, we're bringing in NJPSA from down in Monroe, who's going to be able to do consulting and supporting all of our school committees. And that's one step that we're going to be taking, and that training is scheduled for January 9th for all of our school-level teams. And the goal of that is to standardize our INRS processes and practices in district, which will enable each team to be more effective in identifying and implementing interventions earlier on before any learning gaps and achievement gaps become further manifested. So that's the first thing. Secondly, we are in the process right now. I was recently on the phone with Fairleigh Dickinson University. Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey is known for providing training for reading specialists, specifically around students who have dyslexia, and utilizing a multi-sensory approach to learning called the Orton-Gillingham approach. So what we're currently looking at is bringing in a trainer from Fairleigh Dickinson and exploring the options of bringing that person in on a regular basis and ensuring that we have at least one member at each school who is trained in Orton-Gillingham, so that way we can have the appropriate staff and personnel in each school who will be able to provide the necessary interventions either before school, during school, or after school for students who are struggling with reading and require reading intervention, and specifically around the multisensory approach. So those are two very key and significant outcomes that have come from a lot of feedback that I've received on areas that we can really improve to help support our students and provide further services to ensure that they're maximizing their individual potential.
So the actual impact on the budget at this point in time is to be determined. It's going to weigh heavily on whether or not we can develop the programs that we need to, and whether or not we can convince the parents of these special needs students that we can handle their child in an appropriate way. So this is something that we'll be reporting on between now and the end of the year. If we're not successful, we're going to have to dig for some money, but if we are successful, I think everybody wins in that situation. And that's all I have.
So Joe, were these new, or were these the residual or evolution of the ones that were identified in the very beginning of the year when we developed the budget?
No, when we developed the budget, we were not aware of any of these students. These are students that either moved into the district or became classified after the budget was put together and developed problems over the course of
Right.
maybe the end of last year or the beginning of this year. So
Right.
we
I know
really-
shortly after the budget was approved by the county, right, then, like, in weeks, it came,
There were some.
there
yes.
were, so, and,
Some of them were on the list, and the list has grown.
okay. So what's the total impact to the budget, the total dollar amount? What, the biggest downside potential?
The biggest downside now is close to 300,000.
300,000.
That's for these students in hand right now. That's not the total downside since we framed the budget. Yeah.
Because that was
No,
200
no, no.
then.
This is the total additional
For these students
for
in
these
front of us now,
particular
right?
students.
As opposed to,
If we had to send them all out of district, then we're
That's
looking at about a $300,000
right.
increase in our
Is that what you're asking? You're asking
Well,
what's the total delta in the budget since the time we made the budget and then all of these changes?
Yeah, because
since?
because my memory is, so we made the budget on day one, and then a couple weeks afterward, and the cases came up, and we immediately, it was an impact of 200,000, I think, something like that. So this is another $300,000 downside, or another 100,000?
But the 200,000 was taken care of through breakage.
Yeah, no, I know,
Yeah.
we addressed it, right,
Yeah.
but so this is an additional 300.
Brand new.
So we
Initial
had,
round,
we
okay.
essentially had three waves. We did our budget, call it in March, April. By the end of June, we had some changes in special education. That's
Yeah.
what you just talked about. At the onset of the school year, September-ish, we had a small adjustment again, some additional, and then we had this now.
Right, so from from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, we're looking at potentially $500,000 of missed budget, right? And then hopefully we get some savings that we didn't anticipate either to pay for that, right? That's the nature of the beast, right?
Referendum committee report? Is there any committee report for that?
Sure, yes. We met yesterday with Mylan and EI Associates. So those are the engineering firms that are focused on the non-field portion of our referendum project. So everything's on schedule. The next big milestone is for them to go out to bid on the $10 million or so worth of capital. And the drawings that were needed for that are in various degrees of completion, but by and large, they are completed. So the only part of the engineering that is a little behind schedule is the mechanical, but it should be brought back up to speed. Electrical is 100%. The masonry is about a third complete now, but on schedule. The doors project is 100%. All the site work, all the engineering is 100% complete. And the bleacher design, the internal bleacher, building bleacher design is about 75% complete, again, on schedule. So that was the crux of the meeting.
So, quick update on so we had the planning board meeting, and the planning board meeting did not go the way we anticipated it to go because the planning board determined not to review the plans that we have to date. Their obligation is to notify the Department of Ed on what they found. And they did do the review on the music room addition. The other elements of the project are sort of outside the review process. So the next sort of milestones are the planning board needs to notify the DOE of the findings of their review, or in this case, what they determined to be a next step. We'll have to see what that says, and then we can respond in kind to that. And in the meantime, we still move forward on the timeline that we set. There is a bit about a permit application that we need to get into the Department of Environmental Protection for the sewer line. That we believe that's coming from the township sometime in early December. And then we expect to prepare the bid documents. That's all still happening as well, right, Brad?
All right, I'd just like to pick up on that because in terms of the timeline, in a Board of Education perfect world scenario on the field, the timeline would look something like this. We would have presented our plans to the Planning Board in October. The Planning Board would have provided a cursory review in November. The Board of Education would have advertised for bids in January. The Board of Education would have awarded bids in February. With a cooperation of the weather, construction would have started in March. And if everything fell in place, the students would be playing on the fields in September. Now, again, that's a perfect world scenario in terms of the Board of Education. But we seem to have hit a little bump in the road when it comes to step number 2. And let's put in perspective who the losers are here if our timeline can't be met. The losers are not the people sitting at this board table. The losers, if we can't meet the timeline, are the students of Verona High School. The sports teams, the band, are the true losers if we can't get onto that field within our timeline. And it's too bad if that plays out to be the case, but we're hoping that it doesn't. We hope that whatever bumps in the road there are can be smoothed out, we can stay on track, and students, with any luck from the weather and and whatever other things might come up in terms of the course of construction, could be playing on this field in September. And let's hope that in the long run that that's what happens. That's the way it plays out, and that's what happens.
Costs us money too, right? Cheryl, did we get our ROD grant? Did we get the funds from the ROD grant yet?
No, you can't get ROD grant money on the field.
No, I mean, how much do we have in the bank, right? We raised bonds. How much money do we have in the bank right now, sitting there earning no interest?
Oh, we have about 13 million sitting
$13
there.
million,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's
And
earning
then,
a minuscule amount of interest.
Right, but we're paying
No, you're paying,
3.25, something like that?
you're paying 10 times, we're earning 1/10 of what we're paying, right?
Exactly,
Roughly.
exactly. So all delays cost, so if we don't deliver the project, not just the field, I mean, the whole project, we have to deliver that project because we're just losing money every day we don't deliver that project. Field, music room, whatever, right? The whole project.
Well, so all elements of the project are moving on the schedule. The concerns that Mr. Bellino pointed out are all around the field at the moment. Yeah. Okay. I don't think, do we have any discussion?
I have one item. Yeah, just on the Sustainable New Jersey for Schools. Just wanted to kind of get a feel from a board's perspective, if that's something we'd like to move forward on. As our guest had mentioned, they're willing to kind of check those boxes on the infrastructure end of things. We'd have to kind of do our due diligence around checking the boxes on the instructional end of things. It involves getting a committee together in the school, which you can use an existing committee of anything that you have with teachers and administrators. But it's really more of a school direct initiative than, the board has to do a resolution essentially, some type of approval of the,
Right, so
Going
is there
forward on
is there a website or something you could direct us to
Yeah,
get some?
definitely.
Because that'd be helpful. Just when it gets to, there's an educational aspect of it. It'd be
Yeah.
good to know before we sign on anything that Mr. Miller is brought in, Mr. Dioniso is brought in, and that what the requirements are, don't throw a monkey wrench into all the other plans that we
Exactly.
have,
Yep,
right? That's
yep,
just,
yep.
a lot of
So-
times with the grants, it's sort of, you could get $3 today if it costs you $15 over the next 5, right? It's just-
exactly, yeah. Is that something, so, well, okay.
So I'll
You
send
wanna-
off that website link to the whole board for a review.
Perfect.
And we could also see some other districts in Essex County who are also part of Sustainable New Jersey already.
Awesome.
Okay, resolutions?
Resolved that the board approve resolutions number 1 through number 14.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Spartel, seconded by Mr. Day. Any questions? I just have a question on resolution number 10, which is there's a change order for one of the servers. What's the, I can see what this is, but what's the degree of the change?
So the degree of the
Is it
change,
one type of technology for another, or is it a cost change?
it's a cost change in addition. The committee continued to meet and reviewed the wireless access points, and these wireless access points that are going to be installed react 24/7, and they determined that it was a best practice to have a dedicated server just for these wireless access points. So that way, when we actually have it installed, that it's functioning most effectively and properly.
So this is an additional component?
An additional component.
Okay, got it. Okay. Any other questions?
I just want to acknowledge resolution number 7, that we approve the VP grant for the Scholastic Science Database. It's always nice to acknowledge the grants when they come through.
All right, let's call the roll.
Mr. Spartel?
Aye.
Mr. Day?
Aye.
Mr. Bellino?
Yes.
Mr. Yunus?
Aye.
Mr. Quattrochi?
Aye. Okay, we'll open up to any public comment or questions, if anybody has. None? All righty, so we'll close tonight's meeting. Our next meeting is December the 9th. We have a confidential session at 7, the public session at 8. Do we have a speaker at the next meeting?
Yes, so Mr. Kish, our coding teacher at HBW, will be attending on December 9th with students from HBW to share projects on 5th grade in the coding class for the beginning of this year.
And then a public meeting at 8 o'clock. So have a great Thanksgiving and good night.